Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Tuesday, July 18th. And it is, what time is it? 8 o'clock in the morning. My watch still says 9 in the morning. I've changed the time on all my smartphones and computer. I couldn't do it automatically because they're not connected to the internet. But so I manually changed the time on everything. But for some reason, I can never remember how to change the time on this Casio. I thought I knew how to do it on Casio watches, but I guess it's different on G-Shock watches. And I keep looking it up each time I need to do it, but then I forget the method. So it still says 9 o'clock, but the real time is 8 o'clock. Yeah, yesterday I was not in a good mood at all. Mentally not in a good mood, emotionally not in a good mood, and part of it was how tired I was. This morning I feel quite a bit better, starting with being more rested. I went to bed last night really early. I just could not keep my eyes open and my body was just finished. So I made sure to go to bed as early as possible, and I tried to sleep in as long as possible. And I think I'm helped in that regard by how quiet it is up here. I think when I was staying at the hotel in Kuala Lumpur, you have this funny thing when you're sleeping and a noise wakes you up, but you're not aware of the noise, right? Because the noise is in the past. The noise occurred while you were sleeping. And if it's one sharp bang, you wake up, all you know is you're awake. And you have no idea what woke you up. Unless that sound repeats, you don't know that a sound woke you up. All you know is you're suddenly awake. And it's like, oh, why am I awake? Like, did I wake up naturally because it's time to get up? Or was there a loud noise? Like, what woke me up? And almost, well, I'd say 100% of the time in that hotel, it was a slamming door. There'd be another guest on my floor. And for whatever reason, I've never understood it. Human beings slam doors. I don't get it. I think it's built into our DNA. I don't slam doors, but the average person does. They come out, somehow, maybe in their hotel room, they're thinking they could be a little bit quiet out of respect for neighbors or something like that. Not usually, but maybe. But then somehow when they step out into the hall, it sort of feels like they're out in the real world and noise isn't an issue anymore. So when they leave their hotel room, they grab that door handle and bang. And I think that just happened to me all the time, woke me up and I'd lie there, okay. But then I'd hear the person next door fumbling with their keys, or they've forgotten something, and then they go back into their room and they slam the door again when they come out. And I'm like, okay. They already slammed the door once, and that was the initial thing that woke me up. Here, yeah, there's no slamming doors. I'm not in a hotel. I do have a rooster, but I put in earplugs, and I think roosters are more natural. If you have really loud roosters, and a lot of them, and no earplugs, I think they'll wake up the average Westerner that isn't used to them. But I've been around roosters a lot, I think, and I'm relatively comfortable with the sound of them. It doesn't wake me up as a rule, especially if I have earplugs in. But a slamming door still cuts right through earplugs. Anyway. That roar you hear is my kettle boiling some water, and I think it's almost come to a boil. So I'm going to stop babbling for a minute and pour myself my morning cup of coffee. Coffee is done. So good. Yeah, it's just this is just instant coffee with powdered creamer, but it's my favorite for some reason. I really like it. Though I wouldn't say no to a Starbucks latte right about now, but this does me just fine. So I was saying that physically I'm feeling quite a bit better this morning, but my throat is weird. I'm wondering whether I've started snoring or something, because I wake up in the morning with a sore throat quite often. And I can't think of any reason why I would have a sore throat. So am I snoring all night long, or have I always snored? I really don't know. I don't think anyone has told me that I snore, so I hope not. I don't think I do. But anyway, yeah, my throat is a bit scratchy and froggy this morning. Doesn't feel right. Emotionally, yeah, I'm still depressed, gotta be honest. The rain, all last night, it just rained all throughout the night. So I end up listening to the rain out there, and then I think about the next day, and I don't know, I'm just not excited about going out in the rain. I want sunshine, and I'm here with a bicycle, and it's like, and I think the feeling, I'm so disappointed in myself, though I'm not really disappointed in myself, because I do this sort of thing all the time, but I'm just tired of me, I suppose. I'm just tired of being me in a way, because I'll do things like this where I'll make a plan, and it's a good plan, but then somehow I don't execute that plan. I end up doing something else. And in this case, my plan, of course, because my visa expired, was to fly to Malaysia, stay there for a week, maybe 2 weeks, fly back, and then continue cycling. But instead, I overstayed. I stayed for a long time in Malaysia, and I had good reasons for doing that, but I still didn't follow through on my original plan. And now I'm back here much later than my plan, and I'm back in another rainy season. So the whole going to Malaysia and coming back here was all kind of wasted effort. Yeah. I end up putting in so much work and effort into something, and then it ends up being a waste of time. And then little things too, dumb little things. I think of myself as a relatively organized person, not big picture, life organization. No, I'm terrible at that. But little things, at least I spend time on organizing. And there are little trivial things that are important to me. And even those, lately, I'm just screwing up constantly. A good example is just the light in this room. It's very dark, it's gloomy, it's dim, and the only way you can see me is because I've been reunited with my Olympus camera, which is better in low light. But it's still, the whole time I'm in this room, I'm squinting. I'm kind of like looking around. It's like I can't see anything. It just feels like there should be more light, because the room has one of these tiny, low wattage, money saving, 8 watt bulbs in here. It barely throws any light. And I know I dislike that, so I always travel with my own light bulb. And when I was in Malaysia, I had a light bulb there. Nice one, 100 watt bulb, in the old scale, 100 watt bulb, beautiful. And then for some reason, when I packed up to come here, I thought, well, I don't need to bring that bulb with me because I have a light bulb here. No point in having two of them. But I get here, and as far as I can tell, no, I don't have a light bulb here. So I'm probably going to buy another light bulb. And I do that all the time too. As I said, I think I'm fairly organized, but for an organized person, why do I keep buying the same thing over and over again each time I need one? Because somehow the other one that I had, I left it behind, or I got rid of it because I thought I didn't need it anymore. And then I buy it again because I realize I do need it. So the hunt for light bulbs. I do the same thing with kettles. I'll decide to lighten my load or something, and I don't want to pack a kettle. So I go somewhere without a kettle. But as soon as I get there, I miss my morning coffee and my evening coffee and my daytime coffee so much that one of the first things I do when I land is buy a new kettle. So I end up with duplicate kettles. And I did that here in Indonesia. When I first came here on my bike, I had a kettle. Granted, it was a bit heavy. It was more of a household kettle. I didn't really want to pack it around with me, so I left it behind in Malaysia. And then as soon as I landed in Dumai, I got off the ferry, I got to my hotel room, and it's like, I really would love to have a cup of coffee. But of course I didn't have a kettle. And one of the very first things I did in Dumai was go out and buy another kettle. Of course, but luckily I still have it with me. It's the one that I'm using now. I've been using it all this time. And it cost like $4 or something like that. It's like a ticking bomb. It's not a high quality device. So yeah, you buy a $4 or $5 kettle, you get what you pay for. But yeah, it still works. I'm still using it. It hasn't burst into flames quite yet. But yeah, I'm depressed about the rain. And my goal for today, I was still thinking about riding my bike into Bukit Tinggi to go get my SIM card sorted out. But if it's going to rain all day, I'm sort of trapped indoors. I can't even ride to Bukit Tinggi. because of the rain. And I thought it was a holiday today. I realized that last night because in planning my flight here, I realized that all of my planning was happening right around the Islamic New Year. So it's the first day of the Islamic calendar, which follows a lunar calendar. And it was the beginning of the new year, so it's a holiday. And I thought it was, last night I was thinking about, what I was going to do today as I listened to the rain. And then I thought, oh no, it's a holiday, which always happens to me. And I was kind of glad that I remembered this, because normally organized Doug, who now these days seems to be terribly disorganized, I would have hopped on my bike, ridden all the way into Bukitingi to go to Telkomsel, and I would have gotten there to find the office closed because it was the New Year's Day. It would have been a holiday. But then I just checked my calendar today. I don't have internet access, but at least my Google Calendar still shows some notes. And the New Year's Day is tomorrow, not today. So I could still go there today, but I'm not sure when to go. I've been to this office a few times because I had to do all this already. I'm just repeating all the SIM card hassles that I had on my last visit. And I've been to this office a couple of times. And the first time I went there was in the morning, and they basically told me, no, they can't deal with me because they're too busy. The place is just jammed. And they were telling me, come back another day, and come back in the afternoon. I guess in the morning, they have a big rush every morning. So I normally like to get things done in the morning, but I don't know whether I should head in this morning or wait until this afternoon. Because in the afternoon, that's when it rains. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to do when I got back to Sumatra this time was deal with all of this stuff. So the rain, SIM card, it's just a problem. So I'm kind of depressed. Though, I'm not telling anyone anything they don't know. I've basically been disconnected for a day and a half, maybe, no internet connection at all. And it can also be a good feeling. Everybody knows that, like people deliberately take digital breaks. They'll go offline on purpose just so that they're not connected anymore. And they find it feels good. It's like coming up out of a deep sleep, like you're in this deep digital world that you live in, where you're constantly communicating with people online and getting information online. You live in a digital world. And I was talking with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago about this, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And I was arguing that the digital world provides far more benefits than anything else. So I'm happy with the digital world. But even me now, a day and a half being disconnected, I feel a little bit better. I can sense something in me that it's like, this isn't that bad, It's kind of nice to be forced to disconnect, to unplug, as they say. I always think of that line from The Matrix where Neo is in his room, he's deep into his computers, and there's a knock on the door, and people are inviting him out to the clubs, and he doesn't want to go. And one of the guys at the door says, man, unplug, man. You got to unplug. And of course, the Matrix is all about, plugging into the Matrix and unplugging and, take a break, unplug from your computer, from your smartphone. And it's almost impossible to do these days unless you are forced to do it, as I've been forced to do it right now. And there's a little bit of I can feel a load being lifted, It's like, once I stop fighting it, then I can feel a little bit of a relief. Like, just, It's almost like a digital responsibility. You feel this responsibility that you have to stay in touch. And I, deal with all these messages. And I know that I've had a few YouTube videos go live. I scheduled them in advance, and I've lost all track of them, but I'm sure there's been a video on Planet Doug or on Planet Doug Behind the Scenes that has been posted, and people will leave comments if they have something to say, and I feel a responsibility to read these comments and reply to people. People are sending me WhatsApp messages, I'm sure. I'm getting emails and Instagram messages, I'm sure. And I would normally feel this weight, you know, a feeling of responsibility that I have to deal with all these messages first thing in the morning. But right now, there's nothing I can do. I don't have a choice. I have no internet connection. So yeah, you can sort of, you feel a responsibility lifting from your shoulders to an extent. Couple of positive, very trivial Planet Doug things happened yesterday. I was talking in my video yesterday that when I came back here, my flip-flops and my GoPro mounting stick both went missing because all my gear was moved from that room into this one. And in the shuffle, in the move, whatever, these two items went missing. And clearly they're not a big deal. It's not like my bike went missing or my Olympus camera went missing. It's nothing like that. You know, it's just a pair of cheap flip-flops and a broomstick, basically. But they represent time. So I have to get new flip-flops now. And it can take you half a morning when you're in a place like this. You want to go shopping, you got to go somewhere, go to the store. They won't have my size because my feet are pretty big, I guess, and the style that I want. And a whole half a day can be lost in just looking for flip-flops, and another half a day or more trying to find another suitable stick to mount my GoPro. So it's like, oh, for Pete's sake, now I gotta go shopping for a light bulb and a SIM card and flip-flops and a broomstick. I mean, that's not what I came to Sumatra to do. But yesterday, I thought, oh, you know, maybe they just got left behind in that room, but the door was locked. But I found a key. They have a set of keys just hanging on a hook there, and they're all labeled, and I found a key. It's an old skeleton key, like the big skeleton keys. And I found the key to that room, you know, and I opened the door and I went in, and my GoPro stick, my broomstick, and my flip-flops were just still in the room. They were in the corner, and they didn't know they were mine. So when they moved me to this room, they didn't move them. Oh boy, what a funny life I lead. So anyway, I have my flip-flops, which is really nice. Seems like a small thing, but I was wearing them most of yesterday and then this morning because the floor here is quite cold and dirty. And then you go into the bathroom here along tile floors, and in the bathroom it's ice cold, cold water. And by the time I finish showering, I come back here, my feet are like blocks of ice, and then they're dirty, you know, because they're wet, and you pick up all this dirt from the floor, and then you try to get into bed, you have to wipe down your feet every time to get all the dirt off them. But now I just wear my flip-flops, and my feet stay nice and warm, and they don't get dirty, and they stay dry, and so, yeah, it just makes life easier. And if I had my light bulb, you know, it'd be easier yet. I might have to look through my gear one more time, think, could have sworn I had a light bulb here. But maybe I went through one of my periods of thinking, I have too much gear and I should, you know, get rid of it. Or maybe it broke, because that is the problem with these light bulbs. I mean, you carry them around in a backpack, you know, they're going to break. I don't remember the light bulb breaking, but I think that's probably what happened. But anyway, I don't want to, because the kind of light bulbs that I use are actually relatively expensive. They're not cheap. And if you keep buying new ones all the time, breaking them all the time, then yeah, it adds up over time. So anyway, I'm sure I can't resist. There will be a new light bulb here probably today, and I'll be happier because of it. I had some small village adventures yesterday. The big one, which made me very happy, was going out to get something to eat, because here in this village, I'm kind of cut off from restaurants and cafes. There's really nothing like that, but there's one house where a woman in the house cooks up food, you know, in her own kitchen, and then she puts it in a window, and it's a very chicken and rice and some vegetables, basically. And I discovered that last time I was here, and that was where I got almost all of my meals. Every afternoon I would go there. I tended to eat once a day, and I would go there, you know, late afternoon, mid-afternoon, and she would wrap up in paper and a banana leaf chicken and rice and some vegetables, and that's where I would, my one meal of the day, that's what I would get. I struggled during Ramadan when I was here because she closed, you know, she wasn't operational during Ramadan. So I could get no food at all. So that was a tough time. My one place to get food, if it closes, I go hungry. And yesterday, now there is also kind of a little coffee shop. I used to go there in the morning sometimes, and I'd get a small cup of coffee, and occasionally I would get like a little bun or something there. They would have some baked goods, but they've been closed, so I haven't seen the doors open. So I wasn't counting on that. But I went out late yesterday afternoon, and I walked down the road, and I went to this house, and to my delight, it was open. Well, it was open. It was like the woman had chicken in the window. Well, actually, when I first showed up, all I saw was like a plate with a little bit of some kind of vegetable on it. I didn't see anything else. And I thought, oh no. You know, she's operational, but she's not going to have any food. And I thought, okay, well, I do have some oatmeal here, you know, and I have instant noodles. I bought a whole bunch of instant noodles during Ramadan, you know, months and months ago. So I would probably come back here and have instant noodles for dinner. So I wouldn't have starved to death. But I was looking forward to having a good meal. But then when I went inside, that was really nice. She had redecorated a little bit. It used to be, she sold a little bit of food in the window, and then there was kind of a shop on the interior, like selling small household items. It wasn't a big shop, like not a real going concern. It didn't seem like she put a lot of work into it. I don't think she sold a lot of things. But I guess she decided to get rid of that, and she moved all that stuff out and put in a big table, almost like a big wooden picnic table. So I guess it's like a little bit of a restaurant now. People can come in and sit down and have their meal, you know, so she adapted and expanded her operation a little bit. So that was really nice. She was very glad to see me, and I was very happy to see her. We had a very friendly relationship when I was here before. And back in those days, I was spending a fair amount of time learning basic Indonesian. And I was able to fight through simple exchanges about the food, how much it costs, things like that. And then we were using Google Translate, like speaking into the phone and then, you know, having long conversations back and forth. Unfortunately, I don't think that works now. I didn't try it, but when I was at her shop and then she started talking to me, and I had to kind of shrug my shoulders apologetically and say, yeah, I don't understand. And then she pointed to my phone and said, well, you know, Google, you know. And I said to her, I don't have a SIM card, you know, I have no internet connection, it won't work. So we weren't able to have our normal conversation, and she was disappointed about that. But now I'm thinking, I don't know that for sure, that it doesn't work. I haven't tried. I just assumed you needed an internet connection to do that. I'll have to give it a try. But even though the chicken was not out on display, she had a big bowl of it on the stove. So I was able to get chicken and rice and vegetables, and oh, so good. I brought it back here. They have a little table out in the living area there. It's not like a dining room table, but it's a low table. But I found a low plastic chair, so I could sit on the chair, and the food was kind of at a proper height, and I could have a relatively comfortable meal out there. So yeah, having a good meal helped a lot. So that was one adventure I had yesterday. The other one was I remembered that they actually have a little shop here. I don't know what you call it. They sell stationery, because there's a school right there, and they sell, you know, notebooks, pens and pencils and erasers, things like that. And they sell light bulbs, actually. I may buy my light bulb there and some other household items. But then they have a glass case where they sell data, like internet data. Oddly enough, when I get my internet data and credit, like for Telkomsel, I use the app. I put money, they do it for me. You know, I pay them 100,000 rupiah, and they put 100,000 rupiah on my phone. They send it to my phone, and I have credit in my app, and I use that credit to buy data packages. But nobody here seems to do that. They have a big display of these, what do you call them? Like little pieces of paper, and you scratch them and you get a PIN number, I guess. And it's like 2 gigabytes, 3, 5, 10 gigabytes. Vouchers, they call them vouchers. And they buy data vouchers. And I looked into the vouchers because I thought, well, if that's what everybody is doing, it must be better than what I'm doing and must be cheaper. And I looked into it and I found out the vouchers were it's a lot more expensive than what I was doing. Like per gigabyte of data, it was much more expensive. So I thought, oh, for the first time in history, I'm doing it the more efficient way, it seemed to me. Anyway, so I don't buy those vouchers. But I wondered whether they had SIM cards. And I thought, well, instead of going all the way into town, why not try? Maybe they can do it. I still have this one phone that has never been used in Indonesia. I've never put a SIM card in it that I can remember in Indonesia. So it is, as far as I know, it is not blocked by customs. As I've been talking about endlessly, this phone has been blocked by customs, and my other phone, my video editing phone, has also been blocked by customs, but that one has not. So I thought, maybe in the village they can do it. And I was thinking maybe in the village they would be more casual. Like quite often if you go to the head office of a company, like if I go to the Telkomsel Grapari, the main office for Telkomsel, they would stick to the rules because they would feel like they have to. And then they would register this phone with customs, they would do all the proper procedures. So I thought maybe here in the village, maybe I can just sneak through the system. Can I get a SIM card? And I didn't think it would work, but I thought I might as well try. So I went there, and there was a young girl working there. And as often happens, she had no idea. There's often the owner of the store is the one that knows everything, and then they hire a young person to be there, and that person can do very simple things. They sell the vouchers. They can sell stationery. But when it comes to, installing a SIM card, no, they don't know how to do that. So I was trying to deal with her, and I asked her, SIM card, and I showed her my Telkomsel packaging from my old SIM card, like, do you have this? And she actually had one. They had, in all their window display, they had one package of a Telkomsel SIM. And then she took that out and showed it to me, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. But of course, I need her to set it up. I can't do that, and then she just kind of was holding it, and I'm like, okay, good, yes, yes. So I gave her my phone, like, put it in, like, install it, and put it in, like, and she's just sort of looking at me like, what? And I'm like, well, obviously, if I want to buy a SIM card, I need it installed. And, I can't do that. The store has to do it. I can't do that. It has to be registered online with Telkomsel. I mean, something official has to happen. But she didn't seem to know that, and she was just sort of looking at me, had no idea what the next stage was. But someone saw me standing there for a while, and then they started, the village network kicked in, sort of like shouting, the next person shouting. And I guess they were shouting person to person until the message finally got to the owner of the store, the manager, that, okay, there's a foreigner, there's a bule, I could hear the word bule. There's a bule who needs something. So then a man came, an older man, and he was the main guy, he was the owner, the boss. And then he knew exactly what was going on. Oh, SIM card, phone. Okay, he took it, got out the pin, you remove the SIM tray, and he put it in. But he and about 3 other people worked for maybe 45 minutes, and they couldn't get it to work. I mean, at first I had a little bit of hope. I thought, oh, maybe this is going to work, because they didn't ask me for a passport, a copy of my passport, which is normal for this sort of thing. And I thought, maybe they're going to treat me like a local person. They're not going to treat me like a foreigner. Maybe they don't know that foreigners have to be controlled and regulated and monitored, and their phones have to be turned off after 90 days. Maybe they're just going to treat me like a local person, put a SIM card in, fire up my phone, and give it back to me. And that was going to be the end of it. Maybe. But even if that was going to happen, they couldn't get it to work. They put the SIM card in, they activated it, they did everything, and then no matter how long they spent going over the menus, rebooting, putting in the SIM card, putting it in different trays, changing all the network access point names, all that stuff, they never ever managed to get it to power up, to get it to activate, get it to work. So that was a failure. And yeah, I left there with, yeah, it didn't work. My end run around the Indonesian Customs Department, I was foiled, you know. They outwitted me. I wasn't able to do it. Normally at this point, I might move on to a YouTube update and talk about some of the YouTube travel vlogs, you know, that I've been watching. But of course, no internet access. I can't, so I have no YouTube videos to talk about. I don't know what happened to Itchy Boots out there in West Africa. I think she must have posted a new video by this point. Chicken uproar out there. But yeah, so I don't have any YouTube videos to talk about. No new travel vloggers in Kuala Lumpur trying out their Ramly burgers, anything like that. I do have some pop culture I could talk about because I started, well, luckily I have a little bit of a backlog. Like normally on the internet is how I would watch TV shows or movies, download podcasts. That's my digital media. And I don't have any internet access, so you think I'd be cut off. But luckily, I have, you know, like all my podcasts, they update automatically and they download to my phone. So I have a whole archive of podcasts that I can listen to, and I have some TV shows that I have access to. And I started watching a new one, and I'm really enjoying it. At first, I didn't think I would, because it feels like a tired old story. It's sort of like, oh, I think we've seen this movie before. And this is a TV show, not a movie, but it's called Hijack. And it's brand new, I think. It's quite recent. And it stars Idris Elba. He's in the main role. And it's, you know, it's a hijacking of a plane. So the show is called Hijack. And I thought, well, okay, I'll watch it. I'm sure it's going to be exciting and interesting. But I just assumed it's going to be like, what's that Harrison Ford movie? You know, Get Off My Plane, you know, and he kicks the terrorist off the plane. I can't remember the name of that movie. Yeah. But anyway, you know, he plays the president of the United States and hijackers take over Air Force One. But of course, Harrison Ford being, you know, the kick-ass kind of president, fighter, he goes into hiding on the plane and he physically fights the terrorists. You know, he's hiding on the plane and has to fight one terrorist and take away their gun. And so, you know, basically it's an action movie. And all these hijack movies are like that. They're all, you know, the hijackers just happen to hijack the wrong plane because one of the passengers just happens to be a martial arts ex-Secret Service Marine secret agent kind of dude with tons of fighting skills, you know. So the hijackers always have bad luck. They always hijack the one plane that has Wesley Snipes on it as a passenger or something like that. And they end up, you know, defeating the terrorists through kicks and punches and weaponry and stuff like that. It's an action movie. So I figured, okay, Idris Elba is the next. He's a secret agent with fighting skills, and he happens to be a passenger on the hijacked plane, and he's going to fight back and win. But they surprised me in a positive way. It's not actually an action movie. Idris Elba, of course, is the hero, and he is fighting against the hijackers, but it's a battle of wits, not a battle of fists. He fights them with strategy, with his technique. And of course, it is based on his skill set because of the type of person he is. His job just happens to be perfect for outwitting the hijackers. So I was very, very pleased to find out that there's a twist on the story. So it's very, very well done, very well acted. I think in terms of big name actors, I think Idris Elba is the only one. You know, he's the movie star of the show. And I'm sure the others, if I thought hard enough, I would remember, okay, I saw him in this show, I saw him in this movie. But they all strike me as just normal people. Like all the other people are just, I don't recognize them. I'm not being distracted because, you know, it would be distracting if the hero was a movie star, and the hijacker was also, like, maybe that would be, well, name another movie star. Then it's kind of distracting to have such two. It's hard to distinguish between the actor and the character. But you've got Idris Elba as the hero, and everybody else is just a no-name sort of character actor that I'm not that familiar with. So I find that works really well in a show. Yeah, and I'm really enjoying it. And so far, I think I'm 4 episodes in. I still don't know what the hijackers want. So that I find that kind of interesting as well. So there's more to be revealed, you know. So I'm kept engaged because I want to find out, okay, what's going on? What is their goal? Who's organizing this? Who's bankrolling? Who's the mastermind behind this hijacking? You know, what's really going on? And there's a lot of interesting technology because they're hijacking, you know, a modern airliner flying around the world. So you get a lot of insight into air traffic control in particular. And I guess that's one side of the TV show that bothers me a little bit. My logical brain is going, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because these hijackers are very professional. They planned this. It's like a heist. You know, it's like a heist movie in a way, but their goal is not to steal diamonds, but to take over this jet. And it's been planned methodically. And there's a big organization behind them, help them with resources and planning and strategy and logistics. So you'd think they would be like Hans Gruber in Die Hard. Like they would anticipate everything and they would have a plan, like a sophisticated plan, and they would know everything, like every detail. And yet at times these hijackers seem like the Three Stooges. Like there's very, very simple things that they don't seem to know, like to do with air traffic control, where, you know, you got a huge airliner flying around the world in post 9/11 days. There are systems in place for air traffic control in each country to verify the identity of this plane. You know, anytime you fly into a country's airspace, you have to identify yourself and tell that country who you are and prove that, you know, you're not up to no good. You're just a normal passenger jet flying over your country. And I'm no expert in any of this, but I don't know the details, but that's just common sense, right? You can't have jets flying over your country and you just have no idea who they are. There must be ways of controlling this. But the hijackers don't seem to be aware of this. It's like taking them by surprise. It's like, what do you mean we have to? I don't know. Sometimes they seem like they didn't really think through what they were doing. And that kind of bothers me a little bit. But it does make the show dramatic because it's not smooth sailing for the hijackers. They have a lot of stuff to deal with. There's a lot going on. And this is a way for Idris Elba's character to insinuate himself into the process because the hijackers are often struggling to keep control and struggling to get their job done. So that does mean a lot of things are happening. If the hijackers were perfectly organized, if they were Hans Gruber and had the perfect plan, then there would be no story to tell. I mean, nothing bad would happen, like nothing would take place. So, yeah, it kind of helps dramatically. You know, it helps the show that the hijackers sometimes don't seem to know what they're doing. You know, it's kind of funny. But anyway, very good show. I'm enjoying it very much. And in terms of tone and how much I'm enjoying it, it kind of reminds me of a show I saw recently called The Diplomat. That The Diplomat starring Carrie Russell, who I know quite well. I remember her from the days when she played Felicity, you know, the character Felicity in the show Felicity. And yeah, so she's the star. And she was in The Americans. Now, I know her from Felicity in The Americans, and I've always loved her as an actress. And she's one of these actors that does not seem to age. I mean, I don't know how old she is now. If I had the internet, I could look it up. But I mean, she's been around a long time. It's got to be in 40s or even 50s. Maybe not 50s. I don't know, 40s, late 40s, early 50s. But she just looks amazing. And yeah, in The Americans, she looked amazing, in Felicity, and now in The Diplomat. So, and she's very good. I really enjoy her as an actor. And the story is very exciting. I don't know how real it is, but it's one of these shows with high-powered politics. She plays the American ambassador to the UK. And the twist on the story is that there apparently are two different types of ambassadors. Like there can be the ambassador, it's just like a ceremonial position. They don't really do anything. And I guess people can get rewarded with ambassadorships. Like if you make a huge donation to an American presidential candidate and you help them get elected, your reward could be that you get appointed U.S. ambassador to France, one of these plum positions, and then you go off to France and live a life of luxury, and all you do is dress up in nice clothing and go to wonderful dinners. And other people, the diplomatic corps, they're the ones doing the actual work in the background, but the ambassador is just a figurehead. So you've got that kind of ambassador. But Kerry Russell's character, I can't remember the name of her character in the show. It's been a few weeks, a couple of months since I watched it, so the details aren't fresh. But anyway, she's a different type of ambassador. She's a real hands-on person who likes to get her hands dirty and get things done and help people. And they were going to send her to like hotspots. They send her to places where there's a civil war going on, where they really need someone who likes to work and get things done. It's not ceremonial. But for reasons that I won't give away, the powers that be decided to take this working ambassador, and instead of sending her to the hotspot, they sent her to the UK, which is supposed to be more of a ceremonial position. So there's some humor there as well, and I enjoy that quite a bit, where everybody is expecting her to just look good, to be beautiful, to dress up in lovely gowns, and then go to all these diplomatic functions and pose for photographs and sort of represent the United States as a figurehead. And Kerry Russell's character she just has no patience for any of that. She wants to wear nothing but black because it's simple, and she just wants normal clothes, and she doesn't want to, like every dinner they say, oh, you have a photo shoot. You have to dress up in this lovely gown and pose for photos. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I have work to do. And she's, getting busy and doing work and trying to get things done. And so it's kind of fun. But the most part of the show is serious. It's a serious drama where bad things are happening, and there's a huge international incident takes place, and she's in the middle of it and is trying to get things done. Relationships between all these different countries, and so it's a serious show, but it also has some humor and some drama and some human interest as well. So yeah, The Diplomat with Kerry Russell. Yeah, I'm enjoying that quite a bit. Or I enjoyed that quite a bit, and somehow, the one I'm watching now, Hijack, is a little bit more Hollywood, or Hollywood in a different way. But for some reason, I would lump those in the same category, in the sense of, if you enjoyed The Diplomat, if you enjoyed The Americans, you're probably going to enjoy Hijack. I think it would be the show for you. Very easy to watch, fun show, lots of action, lots of drama. So yeah, it's a fun show to watch. And since I'm doing a pop culture roundup, I might as well continue. I keep threatening to talk about podcasts, which is a whole different kind of thing, but I don't think I will have the time or the energy to do that this morning, so I'll keep going with pop culture, because I just realized I've totally forgot about it, but I've been watching another show called No Ordinary Family, I think is the full name. No Ordinary Life. No Ordinary Life. And I think this show is a few years old, and I think it went completely under the radar. I'd never even heard of it. And I'm really into superhero shows, and I really like movies or shows, especially origin stories. Those are always the best ones, where someone discovers they have superpowers. And then that can be a lot of fun, you know, learning that they have. You have to establish the character as being someone who needs help. You know, their life is a bit of a mess. They have problems. And then they somehow get this superpower, and then they learn about it and learn how to use it and that kind of thing. And a lot of modern, I've talked about this before, these superhero shows, they suffer a great deal because of how fast media comes and goes now, because shows don't take their time anymore. They can't risk it. So a show like this would be better served taking its time, like introducing you to the character over 1, 2, or 3 episodes, and then you finally get into the accident, whatever, that introduces the superpower. They discover that they have this superpower, and then they learn how to use it. So you don't even get into any big action sequences until very late. Like even the whole first season for me could be all about just learning about the superpowers. Yeah, I don't need a story. I don't need a villain. I don't need anything. But the way it works these days, if the network executives don't see a huge audience, like first episode, they cancel it and they're done. So if it's a superhero show now, they know, writers know, and directors know, showrunners know. If it's a superhero show, they have to have their powers in the first episode, and they have to show them fully in the first episode, like right out of the gate. So I do find all these shows suffer, and No Ordinary Life suffers because of that. It moves so fast. You learn about the characters, something happens, suddenly they have superpowers, and I mean, it just happens so fast, all in the very first episode. So I think that hurts the quality of the show. And let me be clear, it is not a great show. The fact that I'm talking about it does not mean I'm recommending it. It is, I would call it ordinary. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. It's a little bit like a family sitcom, except the family suddenly all have superpowers, and each member of the family has a different superpower, and they kind of matched up the person's character and problems with the superpower they get. So the superpower can actually help them in their day-to-day life as normal human beings, which I find kind of interesting. You know, that adds a lot of interest. And I haven't gotten very far into the show. I can't even remember now how many seasons there are. I think there was more than 1, 2 or 3 even, or maybe it got canceled after the first season. But anyway, I saw some chatter about it online, and people were saying something that was, if I hear this, it makes my ears perk up. They were saying that this show was underrated, that it was around for a while, then it got canceled, and nobody knows about it, and nobody watched it, but it should have had a wider audience, that it was underrated, like people don't know how good it is. For whatever reason, it was a good show, but it did not get an audience. So I thought, okay, I'll bite, I'll give it a try. So I started watching it, and yeah, I mean, it's fine. If you have nothing else to watch and you like superhero shows and sort of family drama, yeah, it's fun. The acting is fine. One of the main actors, the father of the family, I can't think of his name right now, the actor, he played the Thing in Fantastic Four, the first Fantastic Four movie. The Thing is the big rock monster. Like I think he's orange brown, and he's like this giant. He's basically the Hulk, but of the Fantastic Four universe. And that actor, he plays Chiklis. Is that his name? Chiklis. Something Chiklis. Could be. But he plays the father in this family. And he's good. His wife is fine. They have 2 children. They're both fine. Everything is fine. And you get a whole variety of settings, because the father works in a police department, so you get that world. And then you've got his wife is like a high-powered sort of scientist, researcher in a very, rich company, so you've got that world. And the 2 kids are high school age, so they go to high school. So you sort of see the superpowers in play in all these different environments. So that, just keeps the show entertaining. You never really get bored. One memory I have from the show, though, Little things always bother me in these shows. I guess they're almost like tropes, and I don't know how realistic they are. One of them I talk about all the time, where we've got a family and you want to establish that they have some trouble with the family relationships. You know, the kids aren't getting along with the parents. You know, there's trouble there. And they always show this by the kids never eating breakfast. This drives me crazy, you know, because the father or the mother has just spent an hour preparing a wonderful breakfast in the morning, or they put together a nice lunch for the kids to take to school, you know, full of nutritious food. And then the kids just come running down the stairs, fully dressed. They got their book bag and they just run out the front door, you know, and the mother's like, "What about breakfast?" And they're, you know, "Don't eat it." And they slam the door and they're out the door, you know, and I hate that. For two reasons. Again, such a waste of food. It just seems so weird that anybody would ignore a beautiful breakfast that someone made for them. Why would you do that? It makes no sense. I don't generally have breakfast because I'm just too lazy to make my own. But if someone made me breakfast, you can bet I would be very happy and very appreciative, and I would eat it. But also, the kids are just so rude. You can't do that. I mean, again, different generation, I suppose, but I couldn't even imagine it like back when I was a kid, that, you know, your mother has put breakfast on the table and then you just run out the door and slam it behind you. Oh man, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, not so much that you would be in trouble, it would never even occur to you to do that. I mean, the relationships were so different. Yeah, I mean, for kids to behave that way when I was a kid, it wasn't even a problem, because no kid would ever behave that way, at least not in my experience. You just didn't. And then, not to give away any of the story, but the father, he's trying to keep the family together. He can tell the family's falling apart, and he wants more family time. So he, out of nowhere, it's kind of a weird thing, but out of nowhere, he arranges a trip for the family to go to Brazil, to go to the Amazon rainforest, and then take a plane, like a private biplane, and go for an aerial tour of the Amazon rainforest. And he, you know, set this whole thing up for the family as a surprise family vacation. But then in this show, the kids were like annoyed, you know, like, oh, why do I have to do this? Oh, Dad, this is so lame. This is so stupid. And they're just giving their dad such a hard time for organizing a flight over the Amazon rainforest. And then even when they're going to the, they're actually in Brazil, and they go to the airport and they're walking out onto the runway to get onto the plane, and the kids are just sort of, they got their earphones in and they're looking at their phones, and they're just bad-mouthing their father and whining and complaining and going, "Oh, this is so stupid. Why can't I just stay in the hotel? I want to play my video games." And I get it. They're trying to establish that the family relationships are broken. The father's trying to do a nice thing for his kids, and the kids don't appreciate it. But the situation was so extreme. I was like, come on. I don't care how horrible these teenagers are. Surely, you know, they're going to enjoy a plane ride over the Amazon rainforest. You know, being in Brazil, I mean, it was such an amazing opportunity for them just to go to Brazil. You know, imagine me being, when I was a kid and my dad came home one day and said, "Surprise, we're flying to Brazil." You know, my brain at that time, I couldn't even have comprehended what that meant, but I would not have been complaining about it. And then, we get to Brazil. I don't even know how that could possibly happen, but if we got to Brazil and my dad was like, "Oh yeah, today we're going to the airport and we're getting in a plane," which at that time in my life, I had never been in a plane before. I'd never left Canada. I'd really never left my home province. And for, to go to Brazil, that would be so amazing. And then my dad says, "Oh yeah, today we're taking a private plane and flying over the Amazon rainforest." Just like, what? It would be like the most amazing thing that had ever happened. And then we've got this show where the kids are like, no, Dad, this is so stupid. Why do we want to? It's a bunch of trees. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just weird. It bothers me to see these, in so many TV shows and so many movies, the teenagers behave this way. They're so entitled, so rude, and parents just take it on the chin. And maybe that's how life is now. I mean, I've been away from that world for a long time. Maybe if back in Canada, this is how teenagers behave with their parents? Nah, there's just no way. Kids cannot be, in real life, they cannot be as awful as they are shown in TV shows. They just can't be. So it always strikes me as unrealistic when I see that in these shows, you know? Anyway, without going into the plot and anything else, that's kind of a short take on No Ordinary Life. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm sure I'll finish watching it, and then I'll probably end up forgetting about it later on. One more, because it is fresh on my mind. Yesterday I finished, well, I didn't finish yet, I'm still working on it, but all the video that I shot when I flew from Kuala Lumpur to get here, and the behind the scenes video that I shot yesterday, I had to export it. So of course I've got my laptop and I finished editing the video and then I'm exporting it. And it takes, oh boy, each video took an hour and a half to export. You know, just chunking away. So it was like 3 hours with my computer. Basically, if it's exporting a video, you can't do anything else. Obviously, you can't edit another video. You can't do anything on the computer. It doesn't have enough power to do those two things at once. So yesterday I had time on my hands. I had 3 hours, you know, waiting for the computer to finish. And I ended up watching a movie. And again, I'm not going to say this is a movie I recommend, not for an adult audience. For a younger audience, I think they would love it. It's hard for me to tell. I can't quite picture what a young person would enjoy, but I think it's a children's movie, put it that way. It's a Disney movie called Crater, like on the moon, you know, like the crater of a moon. It's the name of the show, of the movie. And overall, I can see that it was really well done, you know, interesting characters, fun story, heartfelt, a lot of surprisingly large number of serious issues to deal with. I was kind of criticizing, what was I criticizing the other day? Oh yeah, Star Trek. I was criticizing Star Trek because it seemed kind of fake, where they had every single character had to have a tragedy. Character, tragedy, character, tragedy, character. You know, each one had to have some sort of a tragic circumstance to deal with. But it just felt artificial. And you could say that about Crater. The main characters are a group of kids. 5 of them, I guess. Yeah, 5 children. So it's a children's movie. It's not animated, it's live action, but they're on the moon. This is way in the future, which is probably why I ended up being attracted to it. It was set in the future, so like the year 2437, I think. So I think, they don't really talk about it, but I think there was something terrible going on Earth, and then they started to build a moon colony, and then they discovered another Class M planet that can support human life in another galaxy or far away in the Milky Way galaxy. So they now have a human colony on this other planet. So you've got the moon base. So you've got all this science fiction stuff going on, and then you've got these 5 children living on the moon, and then they go off and have a big adventure. So that's essentially the movie. And yeah, every character does have a tragedy, but it does feel real. Maybe if you break it down on paper, it's a bit much. Like if you take you take a random set of 5 people, it's unlikely that every single person would have their own backstory, But it did feel natural in this show that each of them had something to deal with. You have all the classic ones where both parents died, divorce, medical problems, like serious medical issues, on and on. Each one of them had a problem to deal with and some sort of family thing, some sort of trauma to work through. So as they're having the physical adventure on the moon, they have an actual adventure with, life-threatening situations and all kinds of excitement and drama. That's all happening and new discoveries. But as they're going through that adventure, they stop from time to time for them to talk about their feelings and their emotions and their life situation. And they're good friends, and they're all helping each other to deal with their various problems. And it got surprisingly dark at times. And I appreciated that. Sometimes I could tell it was a kid's show, particularly because a lot of the physical challenges they faced, they dumbed it down. And I think as an adult, I'm looking at that and going, yeah, that would not have been that easy. And okay, this is silly. The things they are doing on the moon, this is just ridiculous. No one would really do this. But I think a younger audience, children, they wouldn't pick up on that. They would just accept it, that this is the world they live in, and all the things they're doing would make sense. So, I can buy that. It all I think it would work. But as I said, the emotional issues they dealt with, they went deep into them. It got surprisingly dark for a movie that was aimed at a young audience, at children. That impressed me, that they would go that serious and that dark. And I was trying to imagine the writers discussing it. And I think anyone who wrote this script would realize what they were doing. They did it on purpose. Like they didn't keep everything super light and fun and easy. They said, okay, let's dig a little bit deeper into this and make it realistic, make it gritty. And I can see them having a discussion like, ooh, like in a kid's movie, like, what do you think? Should we do this? Or maybe we should dial it back a little bit, make it a little bit less serious. So I can see those conversations taking place at some point, maybe, the studio executives maybe reading the script and going, ooh, maybe, circling things and saying, oh, maybe this is too much. And then in the end, they went with it. And I think they ended up dialing it down, even making it less serious, because you get to the end of the movie, and I can't talk about it because it would give away the entire story. But towards the end of the movie, there's a situation which is so obvious that this is the reality. Even the kids would be aware of it. And earlier in the movie, they even talked about it. So in their brains, even in their child brains, they knew that this was the reality of the situation they were facing. So it's not like they didn't know. They weren't dumb. They're smart kids, and they know that this is what's happening. And at the end of the movie, it does happen. And I thought, wow, are they going to go all the way and actually make it, put it right in your face? And then I was waiting to see, because I was very curious if the writers had the courage to do that. It's like, okay, we added some darkness to this movie, but how far can we go? And then when they got to the very end, I was waiting, and they dialed it back. They did not take this final step that I was expecting. So, but I don't know. I would have been much happier if they'd included it, if they stuck to their convictions and went all the way to the end with the darkness, or not darkness. Maybe that's not the right word. With the reality of the lives they were living. What the consequences were. Of the choices that they made. And I thought, okay, I'd have a lot of respect for this movie if they stuck the landing, if they really did it. And they got close, they got right up to the edge, and then they pulled back. They didn't actually do it. They essentially, happy ending. They gave us a happy ending. But in the happy ending, there was something relatively grim, and something very difficult to deal with emotionally, I think. And they, as I said, they got right up to that edge, and they went pretty far. I was pretty impressed, but then Then they stepped back and they didn't go all the way to the end. So that was interesting. But for an adult out there, do you have to see Crater? Not really. You don't really need to see Crater. But for kids, I think they would enjoy it a lot. Yeah. Again, what do I know about kids? Nothing. But it was clearly made for kids. I don't know what age group. Slightly older. You know, kind of the group of friends in Crater they reminded me of like the group of kids in Stranger Things, that age. Exactly that age. That's what these kids were like. And they were that group of friends in Stranger Things, how they interact. That's exactly the same as in Crater. And you know, like Stephen King's, why can't I think of it? Stand By Me, the movie, the book, and then the movie Stand By Me, that group of friends, you know, very much like that tone, that age group, and then that tone of banter and joking around, you know, they're kids. So it's that age group. I think that age group would enjoy Crater quite a bit. So I think that is it. I'm going to shut down. I'm going to go outside. Well, I'll go to the window anyway, see if it's raining, and then work on my bike a little bit. I've got to pump up the tires, make sure everything's in working order. I've got to figure out about camera mounting systems, get all that put back into place. And then I guess maybe go into Bukitingi to deal with the SIM card. If I don't do that, to be honest, I don't know what else I would do today. But man, it looks grim out there. I don't have any open windows here, but I have a little slit in the wall up there. And I don't know, I'm just getting gray skies and rain vibes. We'll see what that's like. All right, shutting down. The end of Planet Doug Behind the Scenes Video Journal Podcast. And I'll see you in the next one. Maybe tomorrow morning I can report that I've rejoined the digital world. Oh boy. And maybe I'll have a light bulb, and then you can see if it's much brighter. All right, I'll see you then.